All right, all right, all right. I am in such a sour mood today. If I can get that hair squared away. I can't get this. I've been dealing with this for like 10 minutes now. I don't have my brush either. Yeah, I'm in a pretty sour mood, so forgive me if I'm quite what is it? Quite rough today. But let's go ahead and start talking about this slate here. Just make sure that's fine. That's fine, and there we go. Okay, so I actually do need to share this in the Discord real quick. But so there's a really good chance. Let me just move this off very fast. There's a really good chance that three of the four 10K guys is optimal. I'm just waiting for this to open over here. Hold on. I'll let that come back. So, we got Hamlin, we got Cendrick, we got Jones, we got Reddick, and I'll even throw Dillon into that as well because with how short this race is and with the the questionable Dominator points of people early in the race, there's a chance that Hemrick isn't optimal because he doesn't lead enough laps or get enough fast laps. Same thing goes for AJ Allmendinger. Same thing goes for Haley. Same thing goes for Allgaier. And I'll put the screen back up. I'm waiting for Discord to open up on this one. Same thing with Allgaier, the two Burtons, Herbst, Gregson, Snyder, Moffitt. Like, even if these guys can get up there and lead laps, if we truly believe that Hamlin is going to go out there and take over and really walk away with this race, well, then all the guys starting inside the top 10 are going to be outscored by place differential plays in the back. And even if it's not Hamlin walking away with the race, which I think it is, that's who I have projected to do. The place differential plays in the back are too cheap. As I started building lineups, I really believe that Cendrick should have been closer to 12,000. Brandon Jones should have been 11.2. Reddick should at least been 10.9 or something. It's too easy to get these guys in the lineups, and even DraftKings is showing in the pricing of Hamlin at 10.4, like, hey, there's a chance that he doesn't get out there, he doesn't lead the amount of laps that we expect him to, and that he doesn't work, and that place differential plays come through. Now that I can put this back up on the screen. Sorry about that. Let me just share this and then I'll be good. Okay, so like when the player pool is really small today, but let me just kind of let me redo the rankings based on projections that I have. I need to copy this. And then we'll kind of get rid of people, we'll move them out of the player pool, and then we'll really, dive into the builds that we're seeing and why we're seeing builds like that. And so Hemrick is still a B. Right now, I would knock AJ, probably do a D. Haley an F. Allgaier probably a B if these guys can lead laps. These are still Fs across the board. Fs all the way to Moffitt. Herbst is no longer in contention. Moffitt is no longer in contention for me. Clements, I have him for 32 points. That's going to be a no for me because he's not even near value. I have a net closer than what I originally thought. I have Jade easily hitting value if he can maintain his positions. Alex LeBay is considered there. Brandon Brown is going to be pretty chalky outside of the 10K guys. I think Brandon Brown is pretty much the chalkiest play. I think Hamlin will have higher ownership, but the way that the lineups go, I think Brandon Brown will actually be the chalkiest play because Brown fits into so many lineups, whether you're playing Hamlin, Reddick, Cendrick, or a combination of those guys together. Like, Brandon Brown seems to be getting into a lot of lines, so even if he doesn't have an actual percentage higher than Hamlin or these other guys, I think Brown is actually the chalkiest play because he goes into so many different builds really, really easily. So we're at Massey right now. I still got Vargas in there. hitting value. Reddick, Timmy Hill as well. Howard moved into a no. Garrett was still a yes for me. Graf is very low consider. He's not in there. Dylan, we'll talk about Dylan as we get through these guys here. I got Ellis hitting a 5x value at 29 points. I got Weatherman actually lower than I thought he'd be at. Ware is there as well. BJ Macleod is still a smash play. And so once we get through here, like these are the guys that I think you should play. And you're seeing that a lot of this leans towards place differential plays. And the reason for that is a lot of the guys in top 10, like I got Hemrick losing 3 positions, still leading 20 laps, getting 8 fast laps, finishing around 47.6 points. That's a 5.1 value, but he's going to be out. He's too expensive for that. Like I got BJ Macleod getting close to 40 points today. Even if you bump BJ Macleod down to 36, like I would much rather play BJ Macleod for $6,700 for say 35, 36 points than pay almost $9,000 for Hemrick to just give me 47. I don't see a reason to really do that. And so I do have Hemrick in a line, and I'll even show the pool that I'm working with because it's small and I think it needs to be considered. But for me, like I think you need to have at least one lineup with Hemrick or Allmendinger in that in case the situation is where these guys can actually stay out in front. They don't lead or they don't lose the lap, or they don't lose the lead until the end of the first stage, or until, Hamlin makes it through the field, because I do think one of these guys can hold their position up there. I went with Hemrick just based on the fact that we've constantly see him getting fast laps and laps led, or actually just fast laps, because we haven't seen him lead a ton of laps recently. But when you look at the recent laps here, Hemrick had 17 Dominator points in the spring here. He's had 2 in the spring race in 2020, and then he has 1 in 2018 and 1 in 2017. So that at least shows that he's mainly getting that through fast laps. And so 4 fast laps in a race, that's not crazy. When you look at this year's Dominator points distribution, you see, and I'm just going to throw all the races in, but Daytona Road Course, 1 Dominator points. Homestead, 2. Las Vegas, 35. Phoenix, 36. Atlanta, 0. Concerning, but not the worst case scenario. Martinsville, 18. Dega, 5. Darlington, this last Darlington race, 16. Dover, 2. Coda, 0. Charlotte, 36. Texas, 6. Nashville, 1. Pocono, 14. Road America, 2. Atlanta, 18. So we've seen that he didn't show up at the first Atlanta race. Showed up in the second one, made changes. I think that the second Atlanta race is more telling than the first one for all the series. And sorry, I'm still dealing with the sniffles. So if I look like I'm crying or if I sound like I got my nose plugged up, that's why. New Hampshire, 14 Dominator points. Watkins Glen, 4. Obviously, I threw in all the races there, but we constantly see Hemrick getting more Dominator points, fast laps led than normal. And so for me, I am not going to Allmendinger. I'm not going to Haley. I'm not going to Allgaier. So we'll just banish them to the shadow realm right here. Burton, Jeb is interesting. Like, what do I got Jeb? I got him for staying in 5th the entire race. No fast laps, no laps led, giving us 39 points at 4.6. Like, that doesn't make sense to me. I don't think Harrison Burton maybe gets 1 or 2 fast laps, but I don't see him doing much. Maybe finishing in 4th. That's more like a ceiling for me. Burton isn't going to fit in there as well. Same thing with Riley Herbst. I initially thought, maybe he can get more, but when I really broke the projections down for $7,800, I got him for 35.25. I'm even giving him a lap led there, and it's more so the 2.5 is more so just like a percentage for a Dominator point. It could be a fast lap, could be a lap sled, but I don't see Herbst really doing much of anything either. Gregson, I gave him some fast laps and very few positions gained. Ended with Noah Gregson being at 43.25, and so I don't really see these guys working out unless a lot of the place differential plays in the back end up getting involved in wrecks or can't get through the field or something crazy happens at the end of the race. So that's at least where I'm at right here. Myatt Snyder, Brett Moffitt, still the same thing for me. Sam Mayer, I don't see Sam. I see Sam struggling in this race. And I know Sam's a good driver, but this is a challenging track. Obviously, they got the composite bodies. You're not going to see guys blowing tires unless you completely just whiff the corner. but I don't see Sam doing much. I'm seeing that Ryan Sieg is being talked up as well. Where do we see Ryan Sieg really finishing? I don't see Sieg doing much, and I'll answer some questions in a bit. But I just kind of want to get this out of the way, so I've kind of said my piece, and I can go to questions. But what are we really seeing from Sieg lately? Sieg has been having constant equipment issues across the board, and so the 16th of Daytona, that's fine. Michigan finished 12th. We had a lot of good guys get taken out in that race. A lot of the front contenders, Hemrick, Cendrick, Dillon, Bubba Wallace, a lot of guys that would have been top 10 contenders got taken out, and there Sieg can only manage a 12th place there with a lot of good guys out. Let's see. Atlanta finished 12th. Good to see, but man, $7,500 is tight for that. And we're seeing that Sieg can get top 12, but this is a pretty stacked field. At Darlington, I just can't see Sieg getting much more than finishing where he's starting. I have him losing a couple positions, and so for me, I'm not going to Sieg. I have 8 lineups today for this race. I don't like going to Sieg at all. Tommy Joe Martins, same thing here. Like, too expensive. There's cheaper guys in the back that will outscore Tommy Joe Martins. Can't do it for me. Denny Hamlin's the first guy that I'm like, okay, I can use. Jeremy Clements, kind of the same argument with Sieg. We'll kind of keep him in there, but I'm personally not going to Clements, but I'll leave his name there because you're going to see what I'm doing when I finish this. Williams can't do it. Castle can't do it. Starr can't do it. I don't see these guys performing in this situation, so we're going to remove these guys as well. When we get down to Michael Gannett, it's hard for me to predict how he's going to do coming off this surgery. Obviously, he was pushed back longer than he thought he would be. I got him finishing around 13th, 12th. If he does work his way into the top 10, which he has the car to do so, he has a way better car than a good portion of the field here. He can make his way in the top 10, but right now I have to play conservative, and giving him like 36 points is about all I'm doing. So for me, I'm not on a net, but I'll leave him in there. Same thing with Jade, and so early in the week, and even right now, I have Jade hitting over 5x value. He's cheap. He has a car that should maintain in the top 20 or at least hold his position. The issue is that Jade I think he's going to be really, really popular as a punt play, and there's a couple guys in the back that I want to talk about. I do have Jade in a lineup, but if anything, Jade and Brandon Brown seem like the guys that I kind of want to be underweight on, because I feel like a ton of lineups kind of funnel their direction. Once we get to Earnhardt, I can't do it for Earnhardt. LeBay, I'll leave his name in there depending on what happens. I'll leave these guys in there. Mason Massey is a guy that I kind of just completely forgot about when I made the video on Thursday. I forgot that he was in a Rick Ware car this week. I'm not giving him a ton, but I think that does bump him up. Like with the BJ Macleod cars, we've seen how Matt Mills performs when it's a long green flag race, which I think it will be. I think it'll be pretty green. I still think Mason Massey will go a lap down. However, I think he can maintain a 26th, a 25th, a 24th throughout the race, and I think he can easily get 5x here. And so I've actually ended up having I've ended up having slightly more Massey than Jade, because I think there's going to be more ownership to Jade, and like I think Massey can perform very similar to him. And with how, maybe not how tight the pricing is, but if you want to get the guys that you want, I think paying down makes sense in certain lineups. Same thing with Vargas. I think he can hit a 5x value as well. And so it's Jade, Massey, and Vargas in the 4K range that I think are all viable today. I like Tyler Reddick. I like Timmy Hill as well. Howard is not going to do it for me. Can't do it for Howard. Can't do it for Graff. Can't do it for Mills. Can't do it for Little. Let's see. We'll kind of X those guys out. And once we get to here, Greg Galding's really the last guy that I'm just going to completely remove. Everybody else is in play for me. And so I'm actually going to do something that I don't normally do, but we're going to actually, I'm going to highlight my actual player pool of the 8 lineups that I have, who I have in lineups. And so, because I think this will make quite a bit of sense here of how I'm building and how I think this race is actually going to end up playing out. So we got We got Jade, Brown, Cendrick. Let's see. Once we go to those guys, where we at? Vargas. Vargas in the line. Reddick, Hill, Garrett, Nillen, Ellis, Weatherman, Ware, BJ. So the guys in yellow are the actual pool that I'm playing with. And so the guys that I've made lineups with, this is my finalized pool that I think you should have ownership to. These are the guys that I've gone to. And so you're seeing that, it's almost leaning more to a place heavy or place differential heavy type of race. And it's not necessarily because I think all these guys are going to gain a ton of positions, but at least my projections for a lot of the drivers in the 8K and the 9K range is just slightly under what guys in the 7K range can perform, just slightly under what some guys in the 6K range can perform. And so that's how I'm kind of breaking down the pool here. And so once we get to this situation here, we're going to assume, at least in this example, Denny Hamlin does correctly or does perform. His life isn't destroyed by his ex just trashing him on Twitter, and he's completely 100% mentally prepared for this race. He's here to whoop some ass. And so if Hamlin walks away with this race, leads laps, say Hamlin's optimal. Well, who else is optimal in this race if it goes green, if guys perform the way they should? My initial thoughts are Cendrick, Jones, and Reddick. Mainly due to the fact that I think Cendrick is going to finish top 5 today. I think he's going to gain, or he's going to get some fast laps throughout this race, and he might be able to take the lead at some point. Cendrick has had an abysmal last couple of weeks. I think he's only done a total of like 42 laps between the last two races. He got wrecked at Michigan when he had the best car at Michigan. Daytona got wrecked by Snyder, not knowing what he was doing, out of his control. Cendrick, I hate to like bring up like, oh, he wants to do better, or this team needs to do better, but like this is a situation where like, dude, you've had 2 horrible weeks, you got wrecked, nothing you could do about it. This is a race where you show up and you perform the way you should. You finish 5th. The issue with Cendrick is he's 11-3, and see, I got that nasal sound back, guys. He's 11-3, and so if Cendrick does get up to the top 5, top 4, but he doesn't lead laps, well then just take the discount on Brandon Jones. Brandon Jones doesn't necessarily need to lead laps here, and we've seen that this is one of Brandon Jones statistically, it's one of his best tracks in Xfinity. Obviously, he got the win last year in the fall race because these idiots were killing each other for first. But when you see the consistency that this team has brought to the table, and kind of the same argument with Hemrick, where we see Jones get scraps of fast laps throughout these races, I would much rather take the discount on Jones. And so my initial thought is a Jones and Cendrick pairing being optimal. If Cendrick fails, then it would probably drop to Hamlin or Jones. And then you start running the situation to where, well, does Reddick even really need fast laps? Because if it goes Hamlin-Jones and you have enough money left over with the guys at the bottom of the salary, you can pay up at another driver and you can get the place differential that Reddick gives you and that Jones gets you, because both these guys should be top 8 finishers, top 7 finishers. And I think Reddick can actually perform very well at this track. Obviously, he runs the high side. But Reddick is very, very good on high tire wear racetracks. I understand they repaved the track, but this race, Darlington races in such a way that almost aggressive drivers are either elevated or hurt here. So, like, if you're aggressive, you're going to be against the wall the entire time. You're going to be clicking off fast laps. However, you're close to the wall, close to making mistakes. But I don't mind Reddick here. And so if Hamlin walks away with this race, or even gets a good portion of the laps led and fast laps that makes him optimal, I still think the main build goes Hamlin, Brandon Jones, and Reddick. And the reason I think that is because when you look at the bottom of this starting grid, I got to talk about Dylan as well. So before I get to the bottom of the grid, and so if it goes Denny, Jones, Reddick, or Denny Hamlin, Reddick. I think it's 3 of these guys. Whoever fails here, like if Cendrick gets involved in a wreck, or if Jones fails because he's a cheaper guy, then I think that elevates Austin Dillon. I know it's in the fucking Jordan Anderson car. This car, I can't tell what it is. Like, I'm always concerned about the Jordan Anderson car having mechanical issues because we've seen that before. But Austin Dillon pops in my mind to take one of these guys' place if they happen to fail, if they happen to run into issues. And Austin Dillon is too cheap. If this car performs, he's going to finish, 10th, 9th, 8th. Like, I can easily see Hamlin in the top 8, Jones in the top 8, Reddick in the top 8, Cendrick and Austin Dillon all in the top 8. So that's 5 guys inside the top 8, inside the top 10, inside the top 9. And so if Cendrick can't lead laps, if Jones for whatever reason struggles, then Dillon works his way in here. And so we'll kind of keep him a distant guy who works his way in, but that's how I think it goes. And so I think 3 of these guys are optimal in this race. And the reason that is because we have BJ, who is going to be driving a car that is better than what he normally drives. He is driving this car to get points because this 90 car needs owner points. They've had Bassarelli basically destroy this car and finish last the last 2 weeks at Michigan and Daytona. They need points. And so it's not crazy for me to think that this car that is on par, I truly believe it's on par to Josh Williams, to Alex Labay in terms of power, in terms of speed, with BJ Macleod, a guy who I wish would actually get a real ride. I think Live Fast will be better next year, but I wish people would give him a real ride so we can see BJ actually, compete for wins. But he's going to easily beat 12 cars in this race. If it goes green and they give him the go-ahead late in the race, or if people start wrecking out, that's when we can start seeing that BJ Macleod starts gaining 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 place differential points. And if that's the case, he's far too cheap. Ryan Ellis as well. I think Ryan Ellis has a chance to gain positions as well. Right now I have him for 11. Even if you bump that down, give him 28, 27, 26 points. That doesn't necessarily kill you, especially if you're paying down because you're paying up for 3 of the guys. If I have Cendrick, Jones, Reddick, even Dillon and Hamlin, all over 48 points. A couple of the guys way higher than that, and so you can play Ryan Ellis. He doesn't have to get you a 5x value. I'll take Ryan Ellis at a 4.6. That's perfectly fine. I think Colin Garrett performs extremely well here. We've seen that the Sam Hunt car has gotten better over the really. I don't think we've given the respect to the guys in these cars before. Like, when Nemechek ran this car at Dover, this was a car that was basically going to compete for the win. I forgot what they broke exactly. I think it was an axle. Don't remember. But I would say that this car is on par with a car that can finish inside the top 12, inside the top 10, just depending on the guy. Colin Garrett at $6,500 starting 31st. I think we easily see Colin Garrett, work his way into the top 20 in this race. I'm perfectly fine with that. Timmy Hill, this situation where MBM needs ownership points as well, or needs owner points as well. They're going to be racing hard. Ryan Vargas is underpriced. I shit on the TikTok kid a lot, but if he works his way up to 24th, 23rd, he's $4,900. He doesn't kill you in a line, and in lines where you're paying up for so many people. As I said, I think you need 3 of these guys in there. I'm fine taking, a 4.8 value, a 4 or 5 value from Ryan Vargas. It just depends on who fails. Like, obviously, there's a chance that Vargas fails, or Hill fails, or Ellis fails, or Ware fails, or Weatherman fails. All these guys fall in the same situation. It just depends on who is there. I just think all these guys are too cheap. It makes it too easy to, build a line with 3 of these guys in there, and then you just play, the different value guys, different combinations of them, and I think that's how you end up on the optimal lineup. And so I think a lot of the guys, if you have 150 lines and you play a player pool like this, you can cover a ton of bases. Going back to Brandon Brown, before I start answering questions. Like, we know the type of car Brandon Brown has. This is the guy who is going to be competing for 14th, 15th, 12th, 11th, possibly working his way into the top 10. And so, going back to the builds, when you build this way, Brandon Brown fits into a ton of these types of lineups, and then you pivot down or you play down for like Hill or a couple other guys. And that's why I'm saying I think Brandon Brown, while he might not be the highest percent owned driver, I think he is a very, very chalk play just because he fits in so many builds. And so that kind of reiterates why I want to kind of be underweight on Brandon Brown. I want to play Brandon Brown if I'm playing guys who are going to be lower owned. Like if I'm playing a really dumb play, well, then I can get pretty chalky with other guys because that dumb play shouldn't be as owned as other people. Like I don't just want to play a chalk lineup with Brandon Brown. I think that's going to be very popular. Same thing going back to Jade, I think originally, and I think it's still this way, is that a lot of projections early in the week and even probably today give Jade a finishing position between 23rd and 18th, whereas I think Mason Massey, if he can gain a couple more positions, can compete to outscore Jade. And even the same thing with Ryan Ellis. If for whatever reason people start wrecking and Ellis can gain some positions, well, then it kind of hurts the upside that Jade has, because he's already starting where he should finish regardless if people wreck or not, whereas other guys in the back, Ellis, Massey, Vargas, Hill, these are guys who can still perform decent and then gain more positions if people wreck. And so that's kind of what I wanted to say. I don't know how long I talked there. It's probably been a while, half an hour without even looking at the chat. So I apologize. I'm going to start looking at the chat now, but this is where I'm at. This is my pool. This is how I believe this race goes. And I believe it's a bit chalkier than what we all initially thought, because there's a good argument that 16 of the top 20 finishers are not optimal in this race. Okay, so let me look here. Eagles, good to see you. Hopefully you do well today. Let's see. ACS, yeah. I'm pretty sure my projections on Patreon, I still have Ellis at a lower projection, and I still ran it like that. I just made sure I got some Ryan Ellis in the lineup, so I'm pretty sure Ellis is the only guy who I didn't put as a yes in my player pool when I sent that out, and I just made some lineups with Ellis maybe like an hour ago, just because I'm trying to find a place to get different off of Buford or Jade Buford. But yeah, so if they all look the same projections wise, that's when I start wanting to look towards lower owned guys. That's kind of why I went to Massey. That's kind of why I went to Vargas, just because I think Jade is pretty popular. I haven't looked at the Monster Squad Discord. I don't know if they're talking about what other people are projecting Jade at, but I'm curious of what his ownership is projected at, because I really believe that he's going to be forced into a lot of lineups, whereas there's guys that you can use outside of that. What's up, Dave? Good to see you again. Dylan, yeah, the Hamlin and Dylan, that's probably my fourth priority. And I ended up making Dylan lineups last because he was my least interested in, and I mainly just built Dylan lineups in the situation where Brandon Jones wrecked, because Jordan McAbee did bet Jones for a top 3, and the Jordan jinx is 100% real. That shit is no lie, and so I'm legit worried about Jones just fucking DNFing in this race. But I did make sure to get some Dylan lines, and there's even situations to where if Hamlin does not show up, if he runs 5th, but he doesn't get those laps led, if he finishes 4th, no laps led, a handful of fast laps, well then guess what? The place differential plays. If they work their way into the top 10, then they outscore Hamlin there. And so I think it's important to build lineups that have Cendrick, Jones, or Reddick, or Dylan, and not play Hamlin. If Hamlin isn't optimal, then it's a complete place differential play lineup. That's just how it is. Let's see. I kind of already talked about the guys that I like off of Brown. Why is BJ wrecking himself? Why are you? Do we really want to? Here, as I said, I'm a bit sour today. So let's go ahead and look at how bad BJ Macleod drives I can only think of one DNF off the top of my head, and that's when he got wrecked by a teammate at Bristol. But let's go ahead and take a gander. And I'm sorry for the people who actually ask questions, but we're gonna be looking at BJ Macleod's last 2 years in Xfinity Series and see how often this man destroys race cars. Because there's a reason why he was considered to replace Michael Annett in the one car at Atlanta. And so this is 2021 in Xfinity Series. Let's see how many cars BJ Macleod tears up, how many he wrecks, how many laps he usually goes down. This is this year. Had an engine issue at Dover in his own car. Oh, what's that? One DNF this year, not even because he wrecked. Okay, hey, Brandon, he's had a good year. What are we talking about? Okay, let's look at 2020 in Xfinity Series. How bad has BJ Macleod been? Wrecked at Daytona, unfortunate. Engine issue with COVID coming out of Darlington. That was pretty much, that's more of a start and park because they needed points in that situation. Got wrecked at Bristol in the, actually, I guess he wrecked in both Bristol races. He probably, this isn't right. I'm pretty sure he was in a JD Motorsports Bristol. We did get wrecked in late. I don't remember. Okay, so we've had 2 wrecks. That was last year. Had a clutch issue, had a transmission issue, rear gear issue in his own car at Kansas, handling at Dover. I mean, this isn't his car. When we look at the DGM cars, sure, LeBay and Williams has had issues, but I don't see BJ Macleod wrecking cars. Like, that is the man who I would want piloting my vehicle because I don't think he's ever going to destroy equipment. Not talking cash lines. I don't like Mills. I don't like Matt Mills at all. I would change that personally. I think you can upgrade outside of Mills. And thank you, Chris, for encouraging people to like the video because I don't do that. So thank you for telling me to do that. Why Jade, Massey, Vargas over Graf, Mills, and Little? So I don't think Mills has the car to do much here. Graf worries me because, so I just kind of defended BJ for a while. Graf is a guy, and I know he nearly took out the entire field this last time. Like, he just kept running to people. But I think Graf is quite a bad driver. And I think he gets in the wall as well. I know he has a 23rd and a 19th place finish last year. But I'm really concerned with Joe Graf Jr. And I don't necessarily need to play that many value plays. Like for me, I'd much rather get to Colin Garrett and BJ Macleod over playing, 2 of, Ryan Vargas and Joe Graf Jr. So I just ended up not getting to Joe Graf Jr. today. If I'm wrong there, well, that's just how it ends up going. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Mills at all. Not a big fan of Jesse Little either. However, I'm curious, like, this is a race that I want to circle for Jesse Little. I think there's a chance Jesse Little can perform pretty good today. It just, I happen to have other guys projected higher. But this is a good race to look back on, a couple weeks from now when possibly, we're at Texas or we're at, I can't think of any other playoff tracks at the top of my head right now, or tracks that the rest of the Xfinity season goes to right now. But at other intermediate tracks, 1.5 miles, I'm actually going to be looking at how Jesse Little performs. He's a guy that I'm highlighting in this race for me to look back on through the lap data because I'm curious to see what his lap times are. He's got a ton of sponsors this week. I think Ellis has the better car, but I'm curious on how Jesse Little does. I'm just not on there today. And then going back to Annett, I'm just concerned of him coming off the surgery, and he's kind of too expensive, like $8,100. I'll just play Brandon Brown. I'll just play Colin Garrett for guys who I think can finish in very similar places. Where you have Gregson right now? Not on here. Let's look. Giving Gregson a 5th place finish, is that too wild? Don't think so. Giving him a few laps led, a few fast lap projections, but it's not for me, man. And I don't think that's why I like Hemrick a lot, because if for whatever reason Cendrick, Jones, Reddick can't get up to the front and Hamlin doesn't perform, well, then I think Hemrick has the best chance to stay out and lead this entire race. Obviously, we're down on like scenario 6, option B of Hemrick, dominating this race. But I like Hemrick to lead this race if it ends up being one guy that isn't Hamlin or that isn't guys in the back. And so if it goes Hemrick, and then I'll go place differential plays, I just don't see Gragson doing much here. So that's kind of where we're at. Let's see what other questions we got. Nothing else right now, but I think I've covered about everything I wanted to. I think this was a very, very fun video. Let me just look at the builds that I've done real quick. I will. So, and I guess this will be my last note. The most salary I've left on the table today has been $400, and usually I tend to leave more, but a lot of lineups that I'm building, even with as many plays as I have, it's leaving 0 on the table, 100 on the table. I just don't. I haven't seen the need to really leave a lot on the table. Obviously, if you want to get different, you can, but even with drastically different builds, I'm not really leaving much on the table, and I'm getting very, very similar projections in lineups, and so I just think this might end up being closer to a chalk fest, and certainly I think there's going to be a lot of duplicated lines today. So that's where we're at. So maybe you do play Little, maybe you do play Mills, but I just didn't get to those guys this week. So I think that's where we're at. I think I've covered about everything. I think I did a good job today. We don't have that many people watching, but I think I've answered everything, and I think I've looked stuff. Let me see. I didn't miss it. Yeah, Sieg has been. I'm concerned about Sieg. I think Sieg gains ownership, and I don't know if that's warranted. Just because there's other guys who can perform better. So yeah, I think that's where we're at. Let's see. Any playoff thoughts? Brown going for the win. When I look at the points, because frankly, the points that I look at are more for the bonuses at the end of the year at this point. Obviously, the whole winning you're in changes stuff, but when we look at the guys that these dudes have to beat, so obviously you got Klinitz, Herbst. Actually, that's what the hell is this? So your top 16 guys who are actually competing. It's Klinitz, Herbst, Net. Snyder has a win. So like for me, yeah, sure, Sieg is going for the win. Brandon Brown is going for the win. Tommy Joe Martins is going for the win. Anytime Tommy Joe Martin stays out, it just pisses me off. Because he's very equivalent to how I fucking race, and I race where I just stay out on 50-lap old tires and piss off the entire league because I cause a wreck. But anytime Tommy Joe Martin stays out on old tires or does something stupid, I just get so pissed off. Like, it never ends well. And anytime, like, the only way that, like, Martins, Brown, Sieg works their way into winning a race is, well, you need AJ Allmendinger, Cendrick, Allgaier, Hemrick, Burton, Yaley, Haley, Gregson, Jones, Reddick, Austin Dillon. Like, probably those 11 guys all need to have issues or not be in contention for the win, and then find a situation to where, Snyder isn't there, Herbst isn't there, and then you find a realm where it's Sieg, Brown, Martin's fighting for a win, which at that point, dude, we've already lost. Like, if a situation where Brandon Brown is looking to win a race, Martin's is looking to win a race, we've already killed people. We've already lost. And so, personally, I don't pay much attention to the point standings in Xfinity for the playoffs. It's kind of already set in stone. As I said, I focus more on where teams are at the bottom of the points for things. And Does that, I mean, yeah, that makes me worry about Brandon Brown, because Brandon Brown has to do really, really dumb things to make the playoffs. And that's why I kind of want to be underweight on Brandon Brown, because he falls into that line of, well, we have to stay on old tires. We have to do something stupid. Obviously, he had a good run at, what was it, Atlanta? I think it was Atlanta late in the race, but that was still because, some guy stayed out. You had Weatherman stay out on old tires and then blow up or get stuck in third gear in different situations there. So right now I just have Brandon Brown to do what he normally does week in, week out, and compete for 11th place. And I think that's what we should have. If he, really starts doing dumb stuff, I think all that does is hurt his upside, because if he's getting off sequence, which the only way to really do that in Xfinity is to not take tires at certain times, and that's how he did it at Atlanta, I believe, is that he didn't take tires at some point, took tires late in the race, things got crazy. I could be wrong, but I'm trying to remember why he was celebrating. I'm pretty sure he did that, because he's always like, man, we always take these gambles hoping it'll pay off, and it finally paid off for us. So yeah, that's why, like, Brandon Brown is really, really worried, not only due to the percentage that he has or the chalk that he's going to be, but because there's a chance that this guy doesn't perform well, and he does something stupid. I think that's about it. If you guys are in my Discord, feel free to ask me questions after this. I get more DMs on Discord than in my server, oddly enough. But if you like this, if you want to support me, if you think this helps you out, or if it does end up helping you out, consider sending $1 my way on PayPal or joining my Patreon. Link is in the description below. You can find it on Twitter as well. All my links are there. And good luck, guys. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm not sure exactly what time we're going to go live with Jordan, because it is the doubleheader, but we'll figure it out later today. So best of luck, guys. Thank you for watching, and we will see you tomorrow.